Is it time to reveal your real magic and become seen, known, and valued? Hi, I hope you're having a great week. It's lovely to be back with you again. And today we are talking about the magic of poetry. So if we haven't met before, if you're new to me, hello, I am Rena Kakin. I'm a deep dive visibility mindset mentor, and I help visionary leaders, soulful business owners, conscious entrepreneurs to break through the fears of stepping into the next level of visibility and create ways of being seen and known and valued that really feel deeply aligned with the deep transformational work you're here to do. So if you're here watching us live, just pop in a comment, say hello. I'd love to connect with you. If you're watching the replay, just type in replay. And if you're watching this somewhere else on the blog, you can always come over to the group Visibility for Visionary Leaders to join the conversation. We'd love to have you here. So let me just see what I can. Okay, hi Karen, hi Janet, lovely to see you here live with me today. So a few weeks ago, I was here talking to Kate Wolf about the magic of story. And it was a beautiful conversation. If you haven't seen that, you can go back and watch it. She had such wisdom to share on story. But I know I often share poems with you and lead poetry dives, but I really felt like I wanted to share more about the magic of poetry and why it's so powerful, because it's been a major part of my journey of stepping into visibility. I actually was never really interested or motivated to step into visibility until I found poetry. And it's been a really powerful tool for me, and I've gradually come to understand why, and I'm also beginning to realize how I can share it in a way that will support your visibility as well. It's taken me a while to knit together the visibility and the poetry, but I'm really excited to share some really powerful tools with you as well. And I want to share about why it's so magical, why it's so powerful, and how it can be a profound tool for transformation, and particularly for stepping into visibility. So one of the things I notice, and if you've seen me sharing poems, you might have noticed this too, or other people, poetry goes deep fast. It drops in to sacred realms, and it kind of opens up this magical space when it's spoken from a deep place. And sometimes just even reading it, sharing a written poem, it just drops you into another space. But there are many of us, and I, was one of them for much of my life, that feel that poetry is not for us. That it's education often taught us that it's a kind of complex puzzle that I don't understand and I don't know what it means, and it's kind of crazy language, and so it can put us off. But when we learn, and this is what I have learned, to really inhabit a poem, to really surrender to the poem, to where it wants to take us, and to the meaning that it has for us, it can be such a profound tool for stepping into sacred visibility and creating magical moments together. And this can be learned. This is something that I have learned, and this is something that I'm really keen to share and teach with others. Because what happens when you share a poem from a place where you've learned how to be in your energy, in your visible energy, and you've learned how to fully inhabit your space and allow the poem to come through you, it shifts your energy, it opens you up, and it shifts the energy in the listener as well, and it transports us to another realm, creating magnetic connection. Hi, Joe. And Joe was saying, yeah, lots of people I know feel intimidated by poetry and share that feeling, it's not for me, it's such a shame. Absolutely. And one of the things, that I often say to people about that is, I have never met anyone who says music is not for me, or I don't like music. I've yet to meet a single person that said, I don't like music. But people say, I don't like poetry, poetry is not for me. And that is because we were never taught that we had to understand all the wonderful technicalities of music to enjoy it. Imagine if we had been, if that had been our education. You can't enjoy music because you don't understand all the chords and all the intricacies of music. If you want to be a musician, that's really valuable. If you want to enjoy music, you don't need to know that. What does the song mean to you? So yeah, that's what I'm passionate about, is about shifting that, education trauma that many people have around poetry. So to lift that and to have a completely different way of experiencing poetry to what we've been taught. So, in my story, poems have come on my path at crucial moments when I was struggling to step into visibility, when I was way off track, when I was kind of really pursuing the wrong path. A poem came along and brought me back to my heart and my soul's path. It was really a transformative moment for me. When I was struggling to take up space, there was a poem that came along that I had so much resistance to, but it completely smashed through my resistance, my blocks, and it shifted my energy so I could inhabit my leadership. When I had for years this deep longing to give my gifts, to step into my soul's purpose, there was a number of poems that kind of fueled that desire and kept it alive through my self-doubts, through the lack of self-belief, through my daily experience not matching this longing, and really called me into being the woman I needed to be, the person I needed to be to step into that soul's purpose. They've helped me to create many heart-stopping moments with groups of people when I stood up and shared a poem, in person or online, where we were just transported together into magical realms and creating these moments of magic and really magnetic connection. And I've had people coming up to me saying, I want to work with you, I want to collaborate with you. Wow, how do you do that? As a result of dropping into that. And I know, because when I've helped other people to inhabit and embody a poem, they have been able to do the same thing. And poems have also, they've really connected me deeply to my own knowing at times when it was hard to find, when it was like, oh, what is it that I want? Where is it that I want to go? The poems have helped me to drop and guided me into the right next step, keeping me on track. So I'm going to tell you more about those stories in the Poetry Breakthrough Experience, which is a 5-day event here in the Visibility for Visionary Leaders group. But if you register, you will get more information about it. And that's where I'm going to be sharing a lot more about those stories and what are the major visibility blocks and how poetry can help you with that. So tell me about your experience. I'd love to hear what's been your poetry journey. Did you love poetry? Did you like, oh, it's not for me? Have you had any magical moments with poetry? I know Jo is here and she uses poetry as vibrational medicine along with her flower essences. So I'd love to hear from you about that as well. So just share in the comments what your experience is around this topic. And, I want to talk a little bit more today about, how and why poetry has always been seen as a sacred form of communication. And it's a really ancient form of communication before there was written words. History, story, magic, spells, all the important things for cultures around the world were transformed into poetry to be passed down from one generation to the other, because poetry is a memorable form of language. So a lot of the ancient stories, were written in very poetic language. A lot of the scriptures around the world, a lot of the Bible and other ancient sacred texts are written in the language of poetry. Again, it brings in an energy, a magic. It's memorable. It shifts people. It's a lot of our scriptures are written in poetic language, and even one of the things that really just surprised me, that even in today's world, even in universities and academic departments where they're very rational and very logical, all of the professors and the poets and even the academic discourse around poetry, it recognizes that there's a mystery and a magic to poetry that you just can't explain rationally. And I haven't seen that in any other discipline that I've come across. And many poets will say that some of their poems arrive to them as gifts. They don't know where they came from. They just kind of arrived, and it's just like, this poem was just given to me. It was a gift. So there's somewhere that poetry comes from, which is a magical realm that we can really transform into. So Joe say, I just discovered poetry at age 6 and started to write my own age 11. I've always found writing poetry and reading it to be a really grounding experience. I love that it's a grounding experience for you, Joe. It brings you into your body. I love the way you say it, like it drops you into a deep space. Yes, my experience has been that I feel like I come home to myself when I write or speak poetry. It can be incredibly moving and revelatory. Beautiful. Beautiful. 100% agree with all of that, Joe. It is a coming home to yourself. And that's what we want when it comes to visibility. When we can come home to ourselves and speak from that place, we're very visible to ourselves, and others see us as well. We have that magnetic connection in that place. And it is a transformative tool. It shifts you into a beautiful space. It shifts people you're sharing it with, whether it's written or spoken, also into this other beautiful space. But as I said, in education, many of us were put off poetry. It's like, what does this poem mean? It's like, oh, I'm going to get the wrong answer. The teacher says it means something else, and what I say is wrong. So, I would love to share some beautiful, a couple of beautiful poems about that, about poetry and how it can be disempowered through education. So the first one is a poem called This Poem by Elma Mitchell. This poem is dangerous. It should not be left within reach of children, or even of adults who might swallow it whole with possibly undesirable side effects. If you come across an unattended, unidentified poem in a public place, do not attempt to tackle it yourself. Send it, preferably in a sealed container, to the nearest centre of learning, where it will be rendered harmless by experts. Even the simplest poem may destroy your immunity to human emotions. All poems must carry a government warning. Words can seriously affect your heart. I love that poem because that's what often has happened. These amazing, heart-stopping, gorgeous poems have been rendered impotent by the experts. So that's gorgeous. And there's another one I'd love to share with you, which is by Billy Collins, who was a former poet laureate of the US. It's called Introduction to Poetry. I ask them to take a poem and hold it up to the light like a color slide. Or press an ear against its hive. I say, drop a mouse into a poem and watch him probe his way out. Or walk inside the poem's room and feel the walls for a light switch. I want them to water ski across the surface of a poem, waving to the author's name on the shore. But all they want to do is tie the poem to a chair with rope and torture a confession out of it. They begin beating it with a hose to find out what it really means. And I love that. I want them to water ski across the surface of a poem, waving to the author's name on the shore. But all they want to do is tie the poem to a chair and torture a confession out of it to find out what it really means. And that's some of the wounding, the baggage that we carry around poetry, and it's like we bring our own meaning to it as well. But this is why it hasn't always been recognized as the incredibly powerful, sacred tool that it was for thousands of years for human beings. So, and why is it that poetry is so powerful? So I want to talk a little bit here about understanding the unique language of poetry and the impact that that creates, because there's a poetic language that we can recognize. Sometimes is that we see it on the page and there's lots of space around it. It looks different. Sometimes we hear it and it sounds different. It's rich. And there is an anatomy of poetry. There's a kind of a structure underneath. There's a rhythm, with the poem. And that a poem often has a specific rhythm that can be slow, that can be fast, but you can feel in your body. And that rhythm also affects the breath. So if a poem has got really long sentences, you have to use a very long breath and it leaves you breathless. If a poem has got short, sharp sentences and it's got a military rhythm, that does something else to the body. You can feel it. And so each poem has got its own rhythm that actually affects our physicality. And then on top of that, it has these beautiful, sensual language. Billy Collins' poem, or press an ear against its hive. So it's bringing in, what does it sound like to take a poem and hold it up to the light, like a color slide. And what you imagine when he's inviting you to visualize what it looks like in the color slide, that's your own senses, your own visuals that are activated. Your body is invited to inhabit the poem, to bring its meaning, or to walk inside the poem's room and feel the walls for the light switch. That's these senses of touch. And it just really is very physical, sensual language, a water ski across the surface of the poem. You can feel your body kind of going, woo, this is fun. So there's this sensual language, there's this rhythm, there's the breath, there's all of the gorgeous metaphors that it offers. And, if a poem talks about, holding it up to the light, it talks about, looking at a house. The house that you imagine is the house that you imagine, and it's going to be different to the house that every other listener imagines. So what you bring to the poem makes all the difference, and you make it your own. And this actually shows up inside our brain and inside our bodies. They've managed to plug people's brains into MRI scanners, and the research has shown that poetry lights up parts of our brain that ordinary language doesn't. And they've shown this with poetry, especially with Shakespeare language, Like our brain is kind of going bing, 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 bing. Where if it was reading the newspaper, not so much is going on because it's fresh, because it's unique. It rewires neural pathways in terms of poetry and mental health that helps people make sense of their experiences and creates new meaning. And this is why it's so powerful for embodying new stories. So for me, it's been, my old story is, I'm off track and I'm, striving to create something, and the poem comes along and says, no, the new story is to trust what's unfolding, even though you don't know where it's going. And everything in me is going to go, ooh, that feels uncomfortable. I don't normally do that. But trusting the poem can help us to embody these new ways of being. And that's the magic of the right poem at the right time for you. It can also integrate a deep transformation, a deep insight. It can help us to stay in that energy over time to really integrate the shift, the transformation. So it becomes the new normal. And in the beginning, the poem can feel like a stretch. It can feel like, ooh, this doesn't fit. This is not who I am. But we want to stretch into the invitation that it offers. We want to become the person that can fully inhabit the poem. And over time, that's what happens when you work deeply with the poem. It stretches us beyond our habitual patterns, how our energy is structured. And so I'd love to, share an example of an embodied poem with you. The ones that I spoke just a little while ago. I know those poems, I love them, but I haven't embodied them in the same way. So I'm going to share with you one that I have so you can see the shift in how it drops in to a beautiful space. So this is a poem called Love After Love by Derek Walcott. The time will come when, with elation, you will greet yourself arriving at your own door, in your own mirror, and each will smile at the other's welcome and say, sit here, eat. You will love again the stranger who was yourself. Give wine, give bread, give back your heart to itself, to the stranger who has loved you all your life, whom you ignored for another, who knows you by heart. Take down the love letters from the bookshelves, the photographs, the desperate notes. Peel your own image from the mirror. Sit, feast on your life. The time will come when, with elation, you will greet yourself arriving at your own door, in your own mirror, and each will smile at the other's welcome and say, sit here, eat. You will love again the stranger who was yourself. Give wine, give bread, give back your heart to itself, to the stranger who has loved you all your life, whom you ignored for another, who knows you by heart. Take down the photographs from the bookshelves, the love letters, the desperate notes. Peel your own image from the mirror. Sit. Feast on your life. And this is such a beautiful coming home to yourself poem. You can feel it's an invitation to come home to yourself. And it shifts something. It shifts something in you when you hear that. And I know when I speak it, when I share this with people, it comes through differently every time. There's different meaning, there's different emphasis, there's different ways that it wants to come through. For me, for whoever's listening, and it's like surrendering to that process to see what wants to come through. So, and this is why poetry is a profound tool for visibility as well as transformation. Because if I, especially when I was getting started in speaking, I noticed that if I started with a poem, or if I, when I was, sharing, my own poems and speaking poems, I could stand up and speak a poem and drop into a magical space, and then, speak from a much deeper place after that, because it's shifted my energy, it's shifted the energy of the room. And it really helped me to trust and relax into that, terror. For me, I had decades of my worst fear was standing in front of a room and speaking. It's like, and it really helped me to shift and to relax into that space. And it opens up that beautiful space beyond the mind. It brings that transformational language. So it's a profound tool for helping you inhabit your own essence and share that with others, to be comfortable taking up space, to drop into the magical realms where you're comfortable bringing transformation, and to be able to speak from that place. It just has that container. There's an energy in a poem that opens up our energy field, where we actually want to let other people in or invite them into the world that we are offering them. So it's such a profound tool for visibility. It creates energetic safety into where we can drop into our vulnerability, our essence, our magic. And it just shifts the energies of others that are listening to it as well. And my vision, I would love to see everyone using poems in their work and in their lives in whatever way they feel called to, and as a tool for their own transformation. I've seen that in many people that I know. My husband now uses poetry a lot in his transformational work. Other people that I've worked with, who were really didn't connect with poetry at all, and then after going deep with it, suddenly we're sharing poems with their yoga classes and in Reiki and with people in cafes, and just kind of really opening up to this deep language of transformation. So because this is such a powerful tool, I would love to invite you to join me for an experience I'm creating, the Poetry Breakthrough Experience. It's 5 days from the 21st of June, summer solstice, for 5 days. It includes a full moon as well. And it'll be here in the Visibility for Visionary Leaders group, where I'll be going live or on Zoom every day to really share the insights, the breakthroughs about how poetry can help you, especially to transform. There's the 5 biggest obstacles to stepping into visibility, and each one of these is pretty major in itself, that keep us stuck in habits of hiding, and any of them can come up at any time. There's no they can always, when you're stepping into next level of visibility, one of these can pop up, or more than one. And I'll share how you can use poems as a tool to support you with each one of these major blocks. And that's where I'll be sharing my stories, my clients' stories, stories of other people who've used it. And so you'll get clear on what are all the major blocks to visibility. And you will also get clear on how poetry can help you with that. And and how the right poem at the right time can be such a powerful tool to help you with stepping into your visionary leadership and creating your sacred visibility. So I'll share the link so you can find out more about that. But I would love to invite you to join me for that experience. and the program that I'm offering after that as well. I'll be offering a 7-week program if you want to go deeper with any of this, but more on that to come. So just gonna check in with the comments. Joe, I'll definitely be joining you for that. Rena, it sounds fabulous. Thank you. I'm really excited to be sharing this. I've not shared this in this way before, and it's bringing so much together for me. It feels really exciting. Janet saying writing or reading poetry gets underneath what I'm needing to say. The words are immediate, right here in the moment. Beautiful. That's beautiful, Janet. Yes, it brings us into the moment. It brings us into alignment. So I will share the link if you want to sign up for that, and I will see you over there. And please do share all of your comments, all of your insights, and I will come and reply to them as soon as I can. Bye for now. Take care.